Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Tuesday, July 30th, 2019. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. I'm telling you, Dr. Mike O'Neilly's the best. That's why he's been my dentist for the last 26 years. He's friendly. He is absolutely empathetic, and he's totally professional. You're going to love it. You're going to enjoy every visit. 317-849-2933. We're going to talk about the Colts in a second. Frank Reich spoke to the media. Andrew Luck spoke to the media. You're going to hear from Frank Reich talk about Andrew Luck a lot, because when Andrew Luck misses practice, every question is going to be about Andrew Luck. Frank Reich, I don't think he enjoyed it terribly, but that's the way it is. That's the quarterback position in the NFL. We'll hear from Reich in a minute. I want to talk about LeBron James for a second. A lot of people, they are agitated by LeBron James' behavior at a summer basketball event when his kid receives an alley-oop, flushes it. LeBron gets on the court. He's bouncing around. He's dabbing guys. He's having a great time. All right, there's some guys who say, you know what, he's an active parent, and that's terrific. Love parents at AAU games. I prefer it when parents keep their mouths shut and sit their asses down, because this is about the kids and not about the parents, and LeBron doesn't know that this is about the kids, not about the parents. When he runs out onto the court, he makes it about himself. When he enters a layup line, he makes it about himself. We compare LeBron James and Michael Jordan a lot. I watched Michael Jordan as a summer basketball parent down in Louisville, Kentucky. His two sons played in games that sandwiched my son's game. So we got to watch the two Jordan kids and got to watch Michael watch his kids. And then Michael stuck around. He watched our kids too. But when he watched his kids, here's what he did. He had a security guy sit with him to keep autograph seekers away from him. And he sat and he ate ice cream, and he never really showed any kind of emotion whatsoever, no matter what his kids did. His kid got a dunk. Michael sat and ate ice cream. Kid turned the ball over. Michael sat and ate ice cream. That's what he did. That is the kind of parent I like at summer basketball events. The kind I don't like is a guy like LeBron James who makes it all about him. Now, is that better than having a non-present parent? Yes, it is. Did LeBron rag any other kids? Was he unpleasant to any other kids? Not that we know of. I don't think that he was. But what he did was he took the spotlight from his kid. He took his kid's moment and he made it about him. And if you don't see it that way, maybe you should. I've listened to all those people, like Nate Burleson, had a nice video, a Periscope video of him talking about this, and I get exactly what he's saying. You know what? Is that the bar showing up? If that's the bar, LeBron James cleared it. If the bar is putting the spotlight on your kid and understand that this is about your kid playing basketball, LeBron James, he fell a little bit short. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the me. I'm tired of LeBron as the sun and everybody orbits around it. You know, and as you look at the people who are being critical of LeBron James, they've all got like 300 Twitter followers and less. There aren't a lot of blue checks who are agitated with LeBron James, because they know this, that if you get agitated at LeBron and you get critical of LeBron, LeBron is going to seek vengeance against your ass, and you are going to be denied access to people that he manages, him, your world as a National Basketball Association journalist and media member is going to be significantly altered because you come down hard on LeBron James, and that's just the way it is. Now let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. Today, Andrew Luck didn't practice. Afterward, Frank Reich, he explained.
Andrew was not out here today. You know, we went according to plan. Felt good about him going for the first 4 days and progressing up. And then just getting feedback from Andrew, just not ready to take the next step, and just thought the best thing to do is be conservative, go back and regroup, and let's get this thing right. We still got plenty of time to go. And listen, we're dealing here with a guy who knows how to deal with this stuff. And I trust Andrew implicitly and want to listen to him and the feedback. He knows what he feels. So I think we're doing the right thing there. You probably will not see him the next 3 days or the next 2 days. Then we'll get our day off and we'll reassess where we go from next week.
Frank, okay. Can you give us any sense of that feedback? Because, I mean, that kind of sounds like a setback.
You know, I'll let him answer that. I don't know if it's a setback. I don't know if I would categorize it as that. He might, we'll see how he would categorize it. I just think it was, we come out here for 4 days. I was optimistic that we could get through these 4 days and just keep going. But, you feel what you feel. And we got to respect that. And it's still early on. There's so much that can get done and so much that is being done in a lot of ways that I think is getting him ready for the season.
Hey, Frank, is it more than just a calf? I think you made a mention on NFL Network, you mentioned lower leg. So is it beyond just a calf injury that he's dealing with?
I mean, right now the primary thing we're dealing with is the calf. And the feelings there. I'll let him elaborate on that, going into the specific details if he wants to elaborate. But we typically don't elaborate on every detail of every injury for any player, not just Andrew.
I think you mentioned at one point in the OTAs that if you played Sunday, he'd be out there. So has something happened between then and now?
Again, if this Sunday was a big game, do I think he'd play? Yeah, I probably think he'd play. But again, only he can answer that. I mean, you got to trust the players. You got to trust the players, and that's what we're doing in this case, and with all of our players.
We've asked you to, without beating it up, he'll now, for the most part, not being part of 2 weeks of teamwork and all that. Doesn't it hold back the offense when your guys not running the offense?
Sure. We love all of our players to practice, but what we just find over the years that we can't let anything hold the offense back. Nothing. And Andrew knows this. There's this. Sure, he's a great player, but this is a team game. And Jacoby's having a great camp so far. He's taking advantage of the reps he's getting, and in that way, it's really good for our team. And so, we're full speed ahead.
Is any part of you surprised
that it was a game week and there was a Sunday game that Andrew would play? Was that a little premature, or was that said before there was something else happening, or like a setback?
Yeah, no. Again, I didn't talk to him in detail this morning. We talked last night about the plan for this week. I listened to, he laid it out exactly how he was feeling, what was good, what wasn't so good, and just talking it through with everybody. Just felt like this is the best plan to take this 3 days, because when you give him 3 days to kind of get his body right, he's going to get every ounce out of that he can. So. Could he play this Sunday? Yeah, I'm optimistically saying, yeah. If you talk to him, he might say, well, I'm not sure. It'd probably be a game-time decision, but you can ask him that.
Frank, how important is it for him to get preseason reps, or for even guys like Devin or Paris to have game reps with him?
Every rep is important. Honestly, he wasn't going to play. If he would have came in here 100% healthy, I'd already determined he wasn't playing in the Buffalo game anyway. That was predetermined 3 months ago. And wouldn't play in the last preseason game. So the plan in a perfect world would have been he played a little bit in Game 2 and a little bit in Game 3, and not a whole lot. So we feel like we get game speed reps out here. Preseason is good. It's fine. We want to get him out there a little bit, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Game 2 still possible? Preseason?
Too early to say. And I don't even want to push it, to be honest with you. Even if he came back and said, I'm going to be, well, let's not even think about that. Let's just get this thing right, take it day to day. And I just think it's important for his mentality and psyche that he just feels ready to go. And we need a good full week of practice, full speed, where he feels confident. That's what we're looking for.
Is this all precautionary, or is he in pain?
Oh, no, he has some pain. He definitely has some pain. That's really the feedback. So, and when you start talking about pain, it's a continuum, right? I mean, it's 0 to 10. Where do you feel? And whatever the player feels, you have to respect that, especially a guy that's been around. This isn't a guy this isn't his first rodeo. So we know he's tough. We know he can play with pain, but we got to be smart right here.
I don't want to break the Andrew Luck questions, but why have tight ends always been featured in your offenses? What is it about it?
Just good matchups. When you get athletic, explosive tight ends like Eric Ebron, when you get really smart tight ends like Jack Doyle, and long tight ends like Mo Alley Cox, they're good matchups on safeties and on linebackers. You're getting coverage on linebackers and safeties, and we feel, and there's good linebackers and safeties out there, but we just feel that's our advantage. Furthermore, you're typically working inside. The ball's in the air, travels less time in the air. The less time in the air, better for the offense. The less margin of error. So I think those are some of the key reasons.
Does that go back to Buffalo when you had, was it McKellar? I mean, does it go back that far back?
Yeah, there's no doubt. As far as how I think about it, yeah. As far as how I think about it, there's no doubt. Seeing, and even back then we had Pete Metzelaars inside like a Jack Doyle. Knew how to use Pete Metzelaars. Knew how to use a guy. Keith McKellar was like an Ebron. You go down the road. When I was here the first time as the quarterback coach, and you had Dallas Clark, and then in San Diego with Antonio Gates, and in Philadelphia with Ertz. So we love our tight ends here, and we're going to continue to feature them.
Frank, you've talked a little bit since camp started about some of the research and science you guys have looked at, in terms of easing in and engaging, the players' readiness and that kind of thing. Was that something that's a more recent effort for you, or was that something that you've been kind of attuned with for a longer period of time?
No, I feel like I've been pretty attuned in with that. I think Chris and I talk about this a lot. I'm open to the sports science stuff. I'm old school in some ways, but I like the sports science stuff. And it's just a question of how to use it. And so we got a really good team of people, and then just the way Chris and I mesh on it and talk through it, I just think it's good to use the information, but you still got to synthesize it and still come down and make judgments at the end of the day that you think are best.
How different is it? You talked about your Buffalo days, for example. How you ever think about how much it's contrasted from where it was when you?
Yeah, there was not. We had talked about none of this stuff. None of this sports science stuff. Well, the only sports science stuff. Let me go back on that. We had Rusty Jones.
Right.
So, as far as being advanced in our training, a lot of the things that we're doing now that all the teams are doing, I hate to say it like this, but Rusty invented that stuff, or at least he was one of the guys that invented it back 30 years ago. So, but as far as all the other data that we get, this is all new in the last 10, 15 years. No update. Yeah, no update at this point.
Al-Qadim Muhammad, who looks like has been taking the starting reps for him. What type of player is he? I know he started games for you last year. What does he bring in place of Joel?
He has a lot of talent, A, or you're not here. B, he is what you call an effort player, which every player should be that way, but he's like a 10 out of 10 when it comes to effort. He's going to finish every play, and so that attitude is contagious, and so that's where he's made his plays, that combination of talent and effort.
Great, thank you. Last question here. Frank, it felt like there were a lot of flags out there today.
It did feel like that, didn't it? And I meant to say that to the team today. In fact, I wrote it down, and I glossed over it. But we'll talk about that one this afternoon with them. That's why we have the officials out here. When we get a pre-snap penalty, I want to mark it off, a delay a game, and I want us to feel the pain of it. And, of course, we do tell the officials to call it a little bit tighter, like the pass interference stuff, because we want our guys to kind of get used to it. So we need to clean that up. We've talked about that as a team, that we got to become a less penalized team, more disciplined in that way. So that's certainly a goal.
That's Indianapolis Colts head coach Frank Reich talking about Andrew Luck. A couple other things. Chap, thank God, asked some questions about the tight end group, and that at least got us off the Andrew Luck injury train of questions for a couple of minutes. The Colts, there are some position groups that have looked really good. The safeties among them, Geathers, Hooker, Farley, Willis, Odom. If those are your safeties for week 1 in LA against the Chargers, if all those guys are healthy and they can all play 16 games this year, that is a definite position of strength for the Indianapolis Colts. At corner, if you've got Desir, Moore, Wilson, Rock Ya-Sin, and Nate Hairston as your quarterbacks, that's a hell of a group. That's pretty damn good. Did you know this? Mike Chappell was saying this today in the media room, that Quincy Wilson, among the most recent draftees, the guys who were drafted in 2019, Quincy Wilson would be the second youngest among those players. That's incredible to me. He was drafted in 2017 at the age of 20. If he was drafted today in the 2019 class, he would have been the second youngest guy in that draft class. That's incredible. He's going to be a really, really good cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts. He's a really likable kid. He's still putting together kind of his toolkit of good habits. I think that he's going to kind of develop this year and be a really good man-to-man cornerback, and I think Rocky Sin is going to join him. Rocky Sin has some ways to go in technique development. But overall, really, really good. Kari Willis has looked good. He's getting in there and making some plays. Pierre Desir broke up a potential touchdown pass today. Did a very, very nice job. Kenny Moore has been good, too. The wide receiver group looks terrific. Again, if they can stay healthy. If you've got Funchess, Kane, and then you look at a guy like Eric Ebron as sort of this combo guy who's as much a wideout as he is a tight end. You have some really big guys. Mo Ali Cox, really, really big guy. If Reese Fountain can figure it out, a really, really tall guy. You got matchup problems kind of all over the place with the receiving unit. Love that group. Jack Doyle, big too. So if you try to match up with one of those guys, if you got a small corner or a small short linebacker trying to match up with those guys, all Andrew Luck's going to have to do is throw it up. Touchdown. There you go, if you're in the red zone. Andrew Luck, again, should we be worried about this? I don't think we ought to be worried about it. Hell, I don't know. What's this thing going to be? It's an ankle injury or a calf injury that showed itself in April. We are almost in August, so it's been more than 3 months. And should that concern people? I guess it could. They say that he probably could play. You heard Frank Reich say that. And we'll see. Let's talk about Major League Baseball for a minute. The Cubs, they got a big series starting tonight in St. Louis. They play at Busch Stadium. Game time, 8:15. You've got Adam Wainwright against Yu Darvish. You've got the Cubs. A lot of guys on pins and needles. A terrific story in The Athletic talking about Chris Bryant and whether he's nervous about the trade deadline. Maybe the Cubs, maybe Theo Epstein pulls a rabbit out of his hat like he did with the Chicago Cubs and 2 other teams when he traded Nomar Garciaparra and put together the foundation of what became a World Series champion Boston Red Sox team. He did the same thing with Manny Ramirez. Is he going to do that with a guy like Bryant? Because you know that Bryant, he's got an agent who likes to move guys around and kind of figure out what the free agent landscape is. And if you've got that kind of situation and you've got a chance to send Chris Bryant elsewhere and get a whole bunch of stuff back rather than let him walk as a free agent in a couple of years, do you take that chance? I don't think that you do. Chris Bryant's one of the best players in baseball. And if you've got him under control for a couple of years, you utilize him for a couple of years. But Theo Epstein, he's a guy that will think outside the box and understands that if you're not capable of winning a championship now, all assets should be in play in creating a roster that is a couple of years down the road. But Chris Bryant, given his age, given his affinity for the city of Chicago and his affinity for the Chicago Cubs, don't worry about the whole Scott Boras issue. Not now. Go ahead, keep this team intact. Chicago hadn't had a team. The Cubs haven't had a team like this that stayed intact, and I'm talking about the 8 guys. All right, the outfield from left to right, the infield from third to first, the catching situation. You haven't had this kind of stability at all spots in a long, long time. You probably have to go back to the late 60s and into the 70s to see a team. And not even then, because the center field situation in the late 60s and 70s was completely nuts until Rick Monday came over and kind of solidified it. But at that point, Santo was on his last legs. Williams was about to go to the A's. Banks was retiring. Hickman was on his way out. So it's been a long time since the Cubs have had this kind of roster stability, and I think that the city of Chicago loves that kind of thing. They love knowing who the guys are, and we went through a long period of time where you just didn't. You were always like, okay, you know, who's 16 out there, for God's sake? Hey, who's 9? Who's 48? Who are these people? Who are these men wearing Chicago Cubs uniforms? Anyway, big series starting today, going for 3 days in the city of St. Louis. The Cubs, they got to figure things out, and they got to do it right now. Again, Darvish tonight, and Darvish has thrown lights out over the last couple of weeks. We hope for success against the St. Louis Cardinals. And I got to tell you the truth, for people who think that the Cardinals and the Cubs is one of the great rivalries in sport, in one direction it is. In the city of St. Louis, they absolutely hate the Cubs. You go into a sporting goods store or a sports swag store, like a Hat World or something like that, in St. Louis, and half the stuff is Cardinal stuff, half the stuff is I hate Cubs things. Lots of I hate Cubs shirts, derogatory shirts about the Cubs. You go to Chicago, you don't see any of that crap because nobody in Chicago gives a damn less about the Cardinals. This is a one-way rivalry. Even when the Cardinals are good and the Cubs suck, it's still a one-way rivalry. Nobody hates the Cardinals. When I lived in Chicago, I hated the Mets, right? I didn't hate the Cardinals that much. The Cardinals, what the hell? Sometimes they were good, sometimes they weren't. But the Mets were the team that I hated, not the Cardinals. Anyway, that's sports, nothing but sports for Tuesday, July 30th. We're climbing into August, and when August comes, National Football League preseason starts, and I'm looking forward to that, and baseball really revs up. Let's get going. Thursday, Media Day down in Bloomington for the Indiana Hoosiers. That's a big deal. Indiana this year, they're going to be able to win more than 5 games. We're going to talk to Tom Allen on Thursday and find out what he thinks. All that coming up. We're at practice tomorrow for the Colts, morning practice. We're in Bloomington on Thursday. This is what we do. We cover sports. We're there, baby, because you deserve it. I'm Kent Sterling. This is Sports Nothing But Sports, brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Tomorrow morning at 8, Breakfast with Kent. Join me, Facebook Live, and then Periscope Live at about 8:15.